Hello and welcome to another video. In this video, I am going to teach you how to create a pop-up modal in React. So you must have seen pop-up modals in various websites. So whenever you click on a login form, it opens up a box where you have the login form. And in many websites, you must have seen whenever you click on that settings, profile settings, it opens up a box and shows you all the options. So this is a really good design pattern whenever you want to do something that should happen instantly without having to send users somewhere else. Okay, so that's how that's why this pop-up modal is a really useful feature, and you should learn how to develop this, because if you know this, you'll be able to give users a really great experience. Okay, so if user wants to log in, you do not want to refresh the page again and again and redirect them everywhere. So in React, refresh does not happen, but even if you are using JavaScript, you must have you should know this feature, because it's something really amazing, okay, from the point of user experience. So how to create pop-up modal? Okay, so before we do that, first of all, make sure to set up the project. Okay, so what we are going to do, we are going to write this npm create vite latest, and then your app name, whatever name you want to give. And you do not have to use vite. I'm using vite because it is quite faster as compared to the typical React thing. But if you are using React or JavaScript or anything, that works. Okay, but I'm going to mainly focus on React, but the concepts are also applicable to JavaScript. So no need to use vite, simply use React, and no need to use this approach. Okay, I have just done that, but in React also you'll be able to follow along. Okay, and once you are done with that, just try to create a file, modal.jsx, and then a css folder, a file for that, modal.module.css. okay, we are going to use this approach. If you are comfortable writing some other approach, feel free to do that. Okay, it's not something really you should worry about why I'm going with this approach. It's just beginner friendly, that's why I'm going with this approach. Otherwise, if you're comfortable writing tailwind or anything, whatever framework you're using, feel free to do that, because logic is same everywhere. Okay, so yeah, let's get started. But before we do that, please make sure to subscribe to this channel, because I'll be posting more such content. And this channel is primarily for machine learning or Python, but from now onwards I have decided to target a broader audience, because there is a huge community of web developers. So I believe this video and such series will help and bring more people to this channel. So yeah, let's get started. First of all, what I'm going to do, I'm going to import this modal.module.css, and then I'll create a simple component, and then I'll render that component here. Okay, so this is the first step, and I think this is something you must be aware of. It's not something so what you can do, you can simply write this line, but I have used a shortcut. If you do not know, no need to worry about, simply write it down. Okay, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to import the CSS from this just make sure that you're importing correctly. So I'm going to use styles.classname approach. If you are comfortable writing simply classes, no need to import this, simply import this directly. Okay, so if you are using this class name, no need to use this styles. I'm going to write styles.classname approach, because I feel that is more flexible. Okay, and yeah, so we are going to need CSS for just one thing, so no need to worry about the CSS part, but still. Okay, so first of all, what we have imported this modal.module.css file so that we can use the CSS, and then we have written this component. Okay, export default function modal, and then return this particular modal. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to import this modal to the app.jsx. And why I'm going to do that, so that we can render it somewhere and see the changes, whatever changes we are making. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to get rid of this particular part and this thing from here. Okay, and here I'm going to import my component model so that we can see the changes on the screen. Okay, so yeah, so we can see that this is here, right? Now what I'm going to do, so it is VS Code is saying that you have some errors, so we can get rid of these redundant codes that we do not need anymore. And once we have done that, now I think we can get rid of this open file so that we can have some cleanliness here. Now let's start writing our code. If you have done until here, just try to write. Now the main thing starts. Okay, just make sure everything works in this way, and once you have done with that, move ahead. Okay, so first of all, we are going to leave this parent div as the container. We are not going to do anything. Always keep a container. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to write the class name, and then here I'm going to use styles dot container. We have not written any class name yet, but I'm going to use this container. And then within this particular container, what I'm going to do, I'm going to write create like a button. Okay, so this button will help me hey, open model. Okay, open model box. And then whenever somebody clicks on this model box, it will pop up the model which will have other content. Okay, so let's create another div, and this div will contain our details related to the model, and we are going to show that model whenever somebody clicks on this open model button. Okay, and in this particular div, what I'm going to do, I'm going to write first of all, this div will act like overlay. So I'll tell you what overlay is. So whenever you are creating a pop-up model, you should always have this overlay, because this overlay will allow you to kind of like blur the entire background. So whenever I'll show you what that means. So overlay is kind of like it takes the entire space on the screen, and the actual model, the idea is the actual model is in the middle of this particular overlay. So overlay will kind of act like it's blurring the entire background, and this particular box, the model box, will stay in the middle of this particular div. Okay, so this is the entire idea. You will see how it looks like in practice. So yeah, so let's write another div here, and this div is the actual model. Okay, so this is the actual model which is inside the overlay. And here what I'm going to do, I'm going to write the heading, and this heading will be let's say, hey, I am model. Okay, and so right now it is appearing here. Okay, it's not going to be hidden for now, but just for now it's going to be there. And then what I'm going to write, I'm just going to add some content just for the sake of differentiation, that yes, it is a model. Okay, you can use me to edit your profile, let's say. And then I'm going to write input. Okay, I'm doing this to show you something that I'll come back to later on. Okay, and below this I'm also going to write a button which will say close model box. Okay, so yeah, so this is it. So this is our model. Right now it is showing here, but once we have done our once we have set up our logic, it won't show. Okay, cool. So we have created our container. Then within this particular container, what we have this overlay. Okay, and we have this button which is separate from the overlay. Okay, so it is not it is not there. This button can exist anywhere, and so can this this entire thing. Okay, so I'm just going to differentiate it right here so that you can have a clear understanding of what's going on here. So you have this particular div, and this div is the overlay. So what this overlay is going to do, this is going to take up the entire background, and it's going to blur the entire thing in the background. Okay, and then we have this modal. So this is the actual model. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to write the class name, this class name as styles dot modal. Okay, and within this particular model we have this h3 p1 paragraph, and then you have input, then box. Okay, and now what I'm going to do, whenever somebody clicks on this particular button, it is going to open up this pop-up modal. Okay, so right now it is showing on the screen, but we'll make it like a pop-up. Okay, and that way it will look a little bit better. And so just let's do one thing, let's hide the modal first, so that whenever user clicks on this particular button, then only it should show this. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to write this model state, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to write set model state, okay, I'm going to use state, import it, and initial state should be false, because we do not want to show the initial state of this model. Okay, we want to keep the model closed. All right, so initially what we want to do, we want to close this thing. So what we are going to do, we are going to render this entire part conditionally. Whenever somebody clicks on this, we want to render this part. Okay, so what we are going to do, we are going to use this logic model state. Initially it will be false, and if it is true, then only what we want to do, we want to show this part. Okay, so this is the logic. So just try to understand this. Model state is false, that's why this part of the code won't execute. Okay, so it will hide the entire thing. When model state is true, then only this part of the code will be executed, and it will check, like it will render everything here. Okay, so this button should act as the initiator. So it is kind of like a trigger. So whenever you are clicking on this particular button, it should show us the model. So right now the model is gone because model state is false. Now what we are going to do, we are going to change the model state to true, so that we can see the model. So whenever somebody clicks on this model box, we are going to show that particular content. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to write on click, and here what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this arrow function, and what this arrow function is going to do, it is going to change the it is going to set it to true. All right, so whenever somebody clicks on this, we are going to show see that particular thing. So let's click on it, and here we have our model, right? So all we have here is this is kind of like the box that we have. All right, so whenever somebody clicks on this, it is going to show this particular thing. Now if you click on this button once again, it is not going to do anything, because it is not toggling the state. So it is not making true to false, it is simply making just false to true. If you want to toggle it, you can simply use the previous thing, and you can use the opposite of the previous state. Okay, but I'm not going to use that and overcomplicate this thing. I'm just going to simply use this arrow function. What this arrow function is doing, it is using this model state, and it is setting it to true. Okay, so if you refresh this, everything will be gone, and once again if you click it, it is setting the initial model state to true. So you see the entire thing here. Okay, so this is the logic here. Now one thing you should note, that whenever in many websites, what they have is this model opens up here, right? So it opens up here, and it's kind of like opens up in the center, and then you can edit your profile or do login or whatever, there's something you must have seen, right? So yeah, we are going to do that. So let's do some styling. Okay, so let's do one thing, let's use this overlay, and let's write some styling for this. So what we are going to do, we are going to use a background color for this, and this background, let's say white. Let's make it white. Okay, so right now as you can see, this is already getting white. But also, what we are going to do, so you must have seen the model appears kind of like in the center of the screen. Okay, so it is not limited to this particular space, it is kind of like everywhere, right? So for that, what you are going to do, we are going to use position fixed. So this this is something kind of what this is going to do. This is going to make the position fixed to the entire background, like entire thing, entire document. Okay, so let's use this top, and we also want it to be like, this is not needed, but I'm just going to use it. And also what we want to do, we want to make this box within the full view. So whatever user is seeing on the screen, I want it to be entirely covered. Okay, so for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use height as 100 VH and width as 100 VW. Okay, so this is something you must have seen, right? So right now it appears like the entire thing that is there, it's gone. Okay, but let's little bit let's do some blurring here. And okay, so let me blur it little bit. Yeah, so as you can see, now we are able to see some things from the background, whatever this thing is. And now let's do some CSS for this model as well. I'm going to take this model, and I'm actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to center this model so that display flex. Okay, justify content to center and align items to center. This should center the entire thing. And let's add some background color to this particular thing, and let's add some padding as well. So this is just for the sake of yeah. So as you can see, now our this box is appearing on the screen. Okay, and also what we want to do, we also want to specify width. Okay, so always keep width in percentage whenever you are using this model, so that you can have a consistent width of this particular box. So right now it is not showing here, but still it's because of the screen size. So yeah, right now it is saying here. Okay, so as you can see, we have this model. So right now it is kind of appearing similar to what you must have seen on various websites. Right now, what we are going to do right now, if you click anywhere here or on this close button, nothing will happen. And what we are going to do, we are going to implement this close functionality. So whenever somebody clicks on this close modal box, it should close. Okay, so to do that, what we are going to do, we are going to use the same approach. So whatever we did here, so on click, what we are going to do, we are going to set this thing to false. Okay, so you can simply copy this thing, and this is going to set this thing to false. Now it should be working. Okay, so whenever you click on this, it goes away, right? The overlay is gone and everything is back to the normal, right? So this is the simple approach, but there is more to this. But still, our entire functionality is kind of like working now, right? So whenever we click on this open modal box, and as you can see, there is some blurriness in the background, and whenever we click on this close modal box, it should be gone. So right, so this is kind of giving us the same thing, same feeling that we get whenever we use some website. So let's say, for example, if you are using OpenAI ChatGPT, you must have seen there is a settings option, and whenever you click on the settings, it shows a kind of a beautiful pop-up box, and there you have all the options to delete your chats, edit your profile. So this is something that's appearing that way. So that's how they do this. Okay, so for example, what I can do, I can simply make this thing entirely transparent, and like everything in the background will be visible. Okay, so this is kind of like completely transparent. So let's make this thing a little bit transparent as well. Okay, no, keep it here, so it's looking fine. Yeah, so this is something like kind of like visible too. So it's something like same as the other websites. So if you click on the close, open, close, so yeah, here users can edit their thing and work on that. Then after that, what they can do, they can close the modal box. Okay, so this is the basic basic way of implementing a modal box. But this is not it. There are a lot of things, because right now what's happening, what we want to do, we also want to allow users to click outside of this particular box, and we want the user to close the modal. So right now, if you click outside, nothing will happen, right? So you do not have anything here, so it's not going to close it. Okay, so we want to allow users to close that whenever somebody clicks on it outside. Okay, so for that, let's do one thing. Let's try to understand something. Okay, now what is this outside area? This outside area is the overlay, right? So this is the overlay, and within the overlay we have our modal. Okay, and what we want to do, we want to prevent modal from closing when user clicks here in this particular area, right? But we want to close the modal whenever user clicks outside this particular area. So how we can achieve that? So for that, a very fundamental concept of JavaScript is needed here, and let's first solve this problem step by step. Okay, so initially what we are going to do, we are going to kind of like set this to false. Okay, so yeah, this particular thing, okay, we can set this thing to false. So if I am closing here, it is switching it to false, right? So right now notice that even if I am clicking on this particular box, it is going to close it. Okay, so it's going to close the entire thing. So we do not want users to click on this particular modal and close this particular box. Okay, what we want to do, we want to close it only when the user clicks outside this particular area. So how we can do that? So you must remember that events in JavaScript kind of propagates from the child to the parent, and then it goes to the top. Okay, it's kind of like it has the event propagation thing, and whenever somebody clicks on this particular area, okay, we are going to prevent the event from propagating to the parent. Okay, so whenever clicks on this particular area, we want to prevent this particular event. So click event to be prevented, to be like kind of tracked by this particular area. So to do that, we can simply use like simply what we can do, e dot prevent propagation, stop propagation. Okay, and where we should write that, here on the modal. Okay, so on the modal, what we are going to do, we are going to stop the event from propagating. Okay, so we are going to use an arrow function, and this is going to stop propagation. And what this is going to do, this is going to stop this particular event from propagating to the overlay. Okay, so this is simply going to prevent this event from propagating to the overlay, so that overlay do not set the modal state to false. So right now, as you can see here, so this is the modal state, and if you click anywhere here, it is not going to close this modal. But if you click anywhere outside this is going to close this thing. Okay, so yeah, so this is the functionality we want, right? We want to close it with the help of this modal, this particular button. And this button can be anything, like, so you must have seen in many places they use this X. So here at the top you will have this cross button, and that is something you can do. You can add icons or anything, but right now I'm just keeping it simple. So if you click on this cross, it should close this particular thing. and whenever you click anywhere here, it is not going to close because we have prevented the click event to propagate to the parent. Okay, so if you click on this overlay part, it is going to close that. Okay, so this is the basic fundamental concept, and this is how you can kind of like build the models. This is like the simplest approach, and it is something like it is something like they do not teach in many courses. Once again, like it's really simple. I hope this is easy, but let's try to revise this, and then we'll move forward and learn some advanced concepts. Okay, so that we can make this model a little bit more like search engine friendly, and for the people who do not who can't see, and people who use like keyboards, for them also we want to kind of like make this thing a little bit better. Okay, so let's try to understand what we did here. Okay, so we created this div called container, and in this container we have a button called open model box, and whenever somebody clicks on this open model box, the model state is being set to true. Okay, and we have this particular model, and this model is inside the overlay, and this overlay has a kind of like it has this position fixed, which means like it's kind of like detached from everything, and it is kind of like at the top of everything. Okay, so also you want to add z index so that it does not create a conflict with other z indexes. So if some elements are at the top, so you want to keep a value really high. And in this, what we are doing, we are keeping the position top 0, left 0. It is something you have to adjust according to your project, but you should always maintain height and width to be 100 VH and 100 VW. Okay, and we are achieving this background color effect using this really low percentage transparency kind of value, and we have this particular model. Okay, and it is in the center, and on this button, whenever the user clicks on this particular button, it is closing the model, so we are setting the model state to false. Okay, so this is what we are doing. And yeah, in the model we have this heading, paragraph, input, and it's something according to your project you can adjust whether you want user to log in, sign up, or you want to put some login form or anything as such, so you can adjust accordingly. Okay, now let's do one thing. Also one more thing, like we implemented the e.stop propagation, so that if user clicks on this model, we are not propagating the click event to the overlay, because overlay is also responsible for closing the model, right? So we are preventing the event from propagating to the parent element, so that we can achieve this effect. So whenever user clicks outside, it closes the model, but whenever user clicks on this model, it does not do anything. Okay, now let's do one thing. Let's add some accessibility area labels, so that browsers and screen readers can understand what this thing is doing. So to do that, let's add some attributes, and these attributes are area has pop-up. So here we have this area has pop-up, and this pop-up, this particular attribute is going to tell the browser, hey, this particular button, whenever you open it, it is responsible for opening this dialog box. Okay, and in the model, in this particular model, what we can do, we can write some things as well. Okay, so here what you are going to do, this is, here you have other area labels called model, right? And we are going to tell screen reader, hey, it contains this is the model, right? And then you have this is something, then you have area labeled by. Okay, so what this is going to do, this is something you should add, because this is kind of responsible for telling, here, this is the title. So you can add the ID here. This ID should be same as what you wrote there. Okay, now if you have a description, then there is something called area description by, and that is something you can add, but I just wanted to show you. And also you want to add the role, so role should be dialog. Okay, just try to save it so that it is formatted correctly. As you can see, now it is formatted. Okay, so this is all you need to know, that we have added some area labels, and this is kind of going to help screen readers and browsers understand what your model is actually doing, where all the elements are placed. Okay, and these are some things you can add on your own.
Now let's implement another functionality, and you must have seen this in many websites. Okay, so whenever this model is open, we also want to close this model with the help of escape key. Okay, so this is not happening right now. So we are going to implement this functionality. But first of all, let me just tell you that in the background you will hear some noise because this is New Year's Eve. So that's why like people are kind of celebrating, but I'm recording this video, so please ignore the background noises. Now let's do one thing. Let's implement this functionality that we are going to use escape key and our model will close. Okay, so we are going to do that. So how we can do that? In order to implement that functionality, we are going to use effect, and we are going to add event listener, and we listen to the event of this press key. Like whenever user presses this escape key, and in that case, what we want to do, we want to set the model state to false. Okay. And I'll tell you why we are adding event listeners. And we are going to run this effect only once. So we are going to use the dependency area is empty. So that whenever the model opens, that means whenever it mounts, the event listener will be added. Otherwise, what we are going to do, we are going to remove the event listener. So let me show you what I mean by that. So let's first, uh, implement, if you are import this thing, and we are going to you know write a function that is going to be passed down. So handle key down, let's say, and this function accepts the event. And whenever, what we're going to do, we are going to check if e dot key is escape. So if the e dot key is escape, what we are going to do, we are going to set the model state to false. Okay. Now, since React has no way of knowing which key the user is pressing, to do that, we have to add event listener to the document element so that we can keep track of the user clicking on a particular key. So we can add a event listener on the document. Okay, document dot add event listener, and here we are going to listen for the key down, and we are going to pass this function. Okay, handle key down. And whenever this model box unmounts, so whenever it gets removed, we also want to get rid of the event listener because we do not want to keep persisting the previous event listener, because that will be a little bit problematic from the point of efficiency. So we are going to remove the event listener whenever this particular uh you know element unmounts. So we can do that by writing it this way: document dot remove event listener, and we are going to do the same thing, handle key down. Okay, and here we want to run this effect only once, so we are going to pass this dependency array. Okay, so this should actually work, because whenever the model opens, now we can press escape key and it will get closed, so you can try it out. So it's getting close. So we have implemented a really nice functionality so that if a person is using keyboard to close the model, they can actually do this now. So this is really nice functionality you should implement. Now the entire model functionality is done. Okay, now let's kind of get little bit more complex. You can finish this video if you are comfortable, but if you are not comfortable after this, I think you should kind of get comfortable writing this whatever we have until now, and only after that you should move ahead, because what I'm going to tell you after this, it's little bit more complicated and more advanced, and that is something you should implement only and only if you need that thing. Okay, and that is only necessary when your model is kind of really big and you have a lot of uh, things. So this is just for the sake of accessibility. So let me show you what I mean. So currently, let's say this is our entire thing. We have this browser and everything. So if you click tab here, so tab is going to create this rectangle, and this, whenever if you click again tab, it is going to move to the next element. See. So it's still moving, to next element. Okay. So this is how it is moving. Now what we want to do, we want to keep this movement within this particular model. Okay. So whenever the model is open, what we want to do, we want to keep the tab inside this. So right now it is going after this particular X, it is going here, right? But what we want to do, as long as the model is open, we want to keep this particular tab inside this only. So we want to create the loop. So from here it should go here, not here. Okay, so this is what we want to achieve. So if the tab, this particular focus is here, it will move to X. And if there is kind of X, if the focus is on X, we want to move this to the this particular thing. Okay, so we want to create a loop as long as the model is open. Now let me show you something else. So if you click tab and shift, so tab and shift, it is going to move backward. So click tab and shift, it is going to move in a backward fashion. Okay, so it is moving backward. So you also want to check if the user is clicking tab and shift, or he is just clicking tab. So we can kind of like implement this functionality um, using the code logic, and this will definitely not make sense in first go. Okay, so just try to write down first, and we'll try to understand what we are doing. Okay, so before we do that, let's create a function in the model. What we want to do, we want to write uh you know create a kind of like, first of all, we are going to track if the model is open. If the model is open, we want to keep the focus there. So for that, we are going to add a reference here. Okay, and here we are going to add a ref. Okay, so currently this ref is not defined. So what we are going to do, we are going to create this model ref, and we are going to use ref, and initially it will be null. Okay, now let's import the use ref first. Now what we want to do, we want to run like whenever the component mounts. Okay, what we want to do, we want to kind of like add this particular reference. So we want to check, like we want to keep the focus there on the model itself. Okay, so this is what we want to do. So but we also want to check first that whether the model state is open or not. See, model state is open. What we want to do, if model state is open, okay, we want to add model ref dot current. Okay, and we want to add focus method on it, so that we can actually track this particular model focus. So here we are going to add this this operator, so that whenever this model dot ref dot current is null or undefined, we should not add the focus method. So it's something we are going to do, and this is kind of like dependent on model state. Okay, so we'll add it here. So it should change whenever the model state changes, right? Now, um, you know, right now it is, it's not going to do anything. Okay, so the purpose of this particular thing is just to keep track of this uh, you know focus state within the model itself. Okay, and this is what we are going to do. So let's add another method here, and here we are going to write on key down, everything will start making sense. So handle tab key. Okay, and we also want to add tab index equal to -1. Okay, so what is tab index? Tab index is simply saying it is simply like which elements to move. So if it is 0, 1, 2, 3 in that order, then it will browser will decide where to move. But if it is -1, that means we are deciding programmatically how to tab around, how to use that tab keyword. So let's do that. So let's write this function const handle tab key. Okay, and this function will take the event. I'll explain everything once I'm kind of done. So if let's say if the model ref dot current is null or anything, what we are going to do, we are going to simply return. But if it has the focus states, the focus reference that we created here, if it has that, what we are going to do, we are going to create an object of all the elements inside that particular model. So all the text area, input, etc. And we are going to, kind of create a loop so that we can kind of like, use the sequence so that, what we discussed here. So right now it is giving error, but once we've implemented everything, we'll we'll see how it works. So here I think handle tab key. Yeah, so this thing is Asian. Okay. So what I'm going to do? So here we want to simply loop around. From here we are going here. From here we are going here. Okay. So let's do one thing. Let's keep track of everything inside. See all the text area, input boxes, and everything, and we'll create an object out of that, and then we'll kind of programmatically decide how to loop around. So just let's just follow along, and then everything will become clear. So first of all, we want to create uh, you know mm, an object of focused elements. Okay, let's say this, and here what we want to do from the model ref dot current dot query selector all. Okay, we want to create an object out of all the buttons there inside it. Okay, all the input, all the select, all the text area. Okay, and we also have all the href attribute. So if you notice, we are simply using the css selection pattern. Href is, this is how we select attributes, this is how we select all the elements. Okay, and then you also have to select everything except for the all the tab indexes except for the last one. Okay, so except for what we have declared programmatically. So initially we declared tab index -1, so we are going to exclude it. Okay, and what we are going to do, we are going to write tab index reference, and we are going to write not. So let's not make any mistake. Okay, once we have the, we now have an object called focused elements. Okay, so this is, I have just written this, but you can write the entire name. So I have created object from all the all the possible things that can be here, because that's how the tab works. So tab only goes to these particular elements, and we are keeping track of everything, so that what we can do, we can kind of like send user programmatically to one place to another. Okay, and now let's do one thing. Let's select the first element out of let's say first element to focus elements first. Okay, zero index, and we also want the last element, focused element, and we access last element by focused elements dot length -1. Okay, so we now have access to the first and last element from this particular object, and this particular object has taken everything from the model, these things except for this tab index, which we have said equal to -1. And then what we can do, we can use e dot key equal to, let's say, tab. Okay, so when e equal to tab, whenever the user clicks, and if he is using tab, and let's say if he is using shift at the same time, so that's what we did earlier, right? So tab and shift at the same time was kind of sending things to the backward in the backward fashion. And whenever user clicks on tab alone, it is kind of like you're navigating to the forward, so the focus is moving forward. Otherwise, at tab and shift, the focus is moving in a reverse fashion. Okay, so if the user is clicking shift also, what we are going to do, we are going to write, we are going to check if the user is also uh, clicking shift key. Okay, so if user is clicking shift key, what we want to do, we want to add some condition. Otherwise, what we want to do, we want to add another condition. Okay, so in either case, what we want to check, like we want to kind of like reverse. So here, let's say user is clicking tab, so tab is moving forward. After this, what we want to do, we want to send the user here, right? And if user is using tab and shift, what we want to do, from here we want to send user here. Okay, and then from here we want to send user here. So this is what we want to do. We want to loop, keep the user in a loop when the model is open. So this is what we are trying to do. So if e equal to tab, this is the entire condition, and in that we are checking e dot shift key. And if that e dot shift key is there, then what we want to do, we want to check if the active element is first element. Okay, so let's write document dot active element if this is equal to first element that we have. Okay, so if the element is first element, what we want to do, we want to change the focus to last element. Okay, because the user is going in reverse. So what we want to do, we take the last element and we are going to shift the focus to last. And also we are going to prevent the default behavior, which is what browsers do. So we are going to prevent, sorry, so we prevented the default behavior because whenever the user clicks on tab, it was moving here there. So we are going to no prevent that behavior. Once we have this, okay, I hope there is no syntax error here. Now what we want to do, if the user is only pressing tab, so if the user is only pressing tab, in that case, what we want to do, we want to check if the active element is first element, sorry, last element. Okay, document dot active element is last element. Okay, so if the active element is last element, what we want to do, we want to send the user to first element. Okay, so the focus should move to first element. Now we, in this case also, we want to prevent the default behavior so that our browser does not interfere. So yeah, I hope there is no syntax error here, and I hope this thing should work. Okay, so let's see if we have this tab here. Yeah, so we are moving, as you can see, we are moving from this particular button, we are moving here. Okay, so whenever the focus is on the last element and we are pressing tab, right? So whenever the focus is on last element, what we want to do after this, we want to send the focus to the first element. So the first element is getting the focus. So as you click on tab, it is getting the first focus. Okay, the first element is getting focused. And if you click tab and shift at the same time, and if the element is active element is first element, so this first element, it is going to shift the focus to button. Okay, so as you can see, it is shifting the focus to button. Okay, otherwise it is shifting the focus to this one. So we have successfully created a loop, and this loop is kind of like responsible for your kind of like it's just suitable for the user experience, nothing else. So this entire thing that we did here, it is not something important or required, but it is something you can implement if you have the model which has like tons of input fields and buttons, etc. So this is something I think not something a beginner should know or figure out, but still like uh, you know Even when I started learning, I was not familiar with these things. Only with time, I got to know that these things can be implemented. And yeah, so let me go through this entire thing. So what we are doing initially, what happens, like with tab, we kind of move the focus, and with tab and shift, we kind of goes the like move the focus in reverse fashion. Okay. So what we want to achieve, we want to simply uh, create this focus on the model, and whenever the model is open, what we want to do, we want to kind of keep the user in loop as long as the model is open. So whenever the model is closed, we do not want to do anything. Okay, that is the default behavior is suitable there. But whenever the model is open, we want to keep the user in loop here. Okay, so what we are doing, initially we are creating a model ref so that we can set a focus state on the model. So initially you must have seen a focus on this particular thing. So let me show you once again. So as you can see, there is a focus on this particular model, right? So this particular focus is coming because of this model rep. Okay, here we added the focus. Now what we want to do, whenever user clicks on this thing, we want to move to the next button. So here what we did, using this particular focused element model.current.query selector all, we created an object which contains everything: button, input, select, text area, href, tab index. Okay, and we kind of created an object, and we selected the first element and the last element. So here currently we do not have all these things. We only have this input and the button. But in case you have other options like text area, etc., then whatever first element will be, that will be selected. Otherwise, what you can do, once we have this first and last element, we have first checked if the user is using tab. If the user is only using tab, what we want to do, we want to check if the active element is last element. So whenever user is here, and if he is kind of using this tab, and if this is the last element, okay, then we want to send the user to this. Okay. Otherwise, what we want to do, if the user is pressing tab and shift at the same time, tab and shift, in that case, we want to apply these conditions. That means the focus should move to the last element. Okay. Otherwise, in the reverse case, it is moving to the first element. So it's kind of a loop around. So this is something what we are implementing, and it's not something important, but still you should know if you are kind of working on a bigger project here. Let's say if you have a big form and you want to implement all the functionalities there, so in that case it's important. Otherwise, I don't think this is really important. Okay, so you can kind of get rid of this thing, but this is just an advanced concept, and this is not something you should know by heart. Okay, just try to play around, and in many places you won't say this, but still I hope this was kind of helpful, because this can be confusing, but still until the escape key, that should be something you should know. Otherwise, it's totally fine. This is just an optional, and only in the advanced projects you will be implementing such functionalities. So always keep the accessibility in mind, because whenever you are creating a website, your user can be any person, and they should have access to the accessibility thing. So yeah, this is really a good approach. So I hope this video was helpful. If you think you have any question, please let me know, and please comment below uh, what other component or what other design pattern you want to learn next. So only based on that I'll be able to help you out. Okay. So yeah, thanks for watching this video. Please make sure to subscribe to this channel if you found this video helpful. Otherwise, uh like um, yeah, otherwise what, okay, just share this video or do something. Okay, let me know. And yeah, happy new year, because this is 31st of December and I'm recording this video, uh, you know, during this night time at 7, 8. So yeah, I hope you have a nice day and a very nice year ahead. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.